Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another slice of Mind Cake.
Mind Cake?
With him,
Lee Crompton. And him,
Paul Beeson.
Oh, nice. Have you run out of languages?
No, I just thought for today's episode I should be normal in case we've got any new listeners. Don't want to put them off before we've got to the meat of the sandwich.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped you for the last 14 episodes, so I don't know what's...
Tune in for episode 17 when Paul starts being a dick again.
Can't keep that in. People have tuned in. People have tuned in especially because I can't quite believe we're saying this.
Mm-hmm.
But this week's guest is Alastair Campbell.
I know.
What happened there? Well, he goes on to explain what happened there, but I remember I rang you as soon as I got to the tube station.
That's right.
And
well,
said,
actually,
you'll never guess what's just happened.
Actually, what happened is you tried to phone me, and I think I missed your call, and then you sent a message saying, please phone, urgent, or something like that. And then I phoned you, and you went, sorry, mate, I'm just about to get on the tube. And then I was left in limbo for like another 15 minutes before you actually told me what the message was.
Yes.
I couldn't bloody believe it.
No, I couldn't bloody believe it either. But yes, without further ado, let's get him on because he is a very good guest. He's obviously very knowledgeable and a great advocate for mental health. So let's speak to Alastair Campbell.
Yes.
So today our guest is writer, podcaster, communicator and campaigner. He was Tony Blair's press secretary and director of communications, but he's probably best known for playing football with Maradona and the bagpipes with Ackerbilk. It's Alastair Campbell.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine. God, I forgot about Ackerbilk. Yeah.
I take it he wasn't playing the bagpipes.
No, he was on the sax, I think.
On the sax, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Where was
that?
That
a long time ago. That was at Cambridge.
Cambridge, okay.
That was a university. He was playing at Mayball and got the bagpipes out.
It's slightly surreal to have you on the podcast, Alastair. And I don't know whether we should talk about how you came to be here or just crack on.
I think you should tell your listeners because it shows your boldness.
Well, thank you. Yes. Well, I was at a commercial conference in my day job when I work for a construction firm. I was at a commercial conference down in London, flew down from Glasgow, and you were the guest speaker at the end of the day and did a very entertaining hour or so. And at the end, there was a Q&A. And I remember, I don't know whether I need to bleep this out or not, but there wasn't seemingly many hands going up. And I said to my boss who was sat next to me, oh, fuck it. And I stuck my hand up and said, Alastair, it was very entertaining. And I listen to your podcast, a big fan of your podcast. And I know you're an advocate for mental health and wondered if you come on my podcast or our podcast, being Paul's not here today, Mind Cake, and just talk about mental health. And I saw your kind of shoulders slump because I can imagine you get asked to open face and a lot of
stuff.
Things.
Yeah.
And I remember how many, it's not really very fair that you asked me in front of 200 people. It's very difficult for me to say no. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why I've asked you, Alastair.
No, you were more impressed than that. There were a few hands. I think you were the first question I called because it was in that moment where people are thinking, oh, will I ask, will I won't? And I'd spotted you before. And I don't know whether, I think sometimes I'm quite good at spotting people who might have a bit going on up top.
Oh, thank you.
So I spotted you. And so I asked you, and then you said that during my speech, I talked about the importance of being bold and being ambitious and aiming for the really difficult things. So you sort of said, well, if I kind of contacted you out of the blue, you'd probably just fob me off. But I'm here now, so I'm going to be bold. I'm going to ask you, will you come on my podcast? And as you rightly said, I said, well, it's very difficult not to say yes to that. So here we are.
I was channeling my inner Maradona and visualizing victory.
Oh, well done. Well done. Oh, I love talking about Maradona.
Do you want to tell that story?
I can do if you want me to.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so I'm now 67, nearly 67. So when I was 49, 18 years ago, I was asked to play in the first Soccer Aid
That's right.
at Old Trafford, and Maradona was on my team. And on the morning of the game, when I was picked, I was going to be in the starting
I was going to
lineup.
say you're in the starting 11, yeah.
And Maradona playing alongside me, and I couldn't sleep. I just could not sleep. So I got up, I went for a walk around the hotel, sort of just killing time, and got back to the hotel. And the only other player who was up was Maradona, because he couldn't sleep either. He was jet lagged. Anyway, he said that he wanted to go and have a kickabout.
As you
He
do.
hadn't kicked. He said he hadn't kicked a ball for a week, and any chance. It was only about 6 a.m.
Right.
So could we go up to Old Trafford and have a kickabout? So we got in a car, went up to Old Trafford, and there was a sort of Jobsworth groundsman who said, no, well, the ground's not properly open, you can't get in, and the pitch hasn't been mown, and we're going like, it's Diego Maradona, for God's sake. Anyway, so eventually let us in, but only me and him on the pitch. That was he said, well, only Maradona and Alastair on the pitch, that's it. And it was just amazing. So I had 40 odd minutes just knocking a ball about with him.
Wow.
And the visualize the victory thing that you mentioned was when he scored a goal. Just when I say he scored a goal, he smashed the ball into the net at one point, and then ran around the pitch celebrating the goal.
The empty stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I said to him after, what was that about? And he says, victory. There you go.
There you
we
go.
Lost.
We lost. That was the very first one.
That was the first one, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Then I played in the second one, and then I got dropped.
Right. Okay. You any good at football?
Nah.
No.
I'm good at reading football. I'm good at watching football. I've got quite a good footballing mind, I think, but no, I'm not very good. I was never that good.
I've got a footballing question for you later on, actually, but we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, I think a lot of you know your public persona, but for those who don't know, Alastair, amongst other things, has written books on mental health. You're a global ambassador for Australians for Mental Health. You co-founded the all-party campaign Equality for Mental Health. And
we need that again.
Well, this is what I was going to come on to, because you made documentaries about your own breakdown and a further BBC documentary, My Depression and Me, in 2019. And I just wonder, looking back now, what do you think made you interested, firstly, in mental health in the first place?
I think I've always been interested in it. I can remember when I was quite young being on holiday in the Hebrides with my family, and there was somebody who lived opposite one of my uncle's crofts. He was being sectioned, a guy called Stanley. I'll never forget it. So I would have been about 8 or something, and I remember just being fascinated about it. There were police there was an ambulance there. It was all just quite dramatic, and yet everybody else standing back and watching. And then my first real personal experience of mental health, mental illness, was when my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was in the army, and that was like a massive shock for the whole family. So that sort of generated a real interest. I actually stayed with him in hospital. Well, he was in hospital, and I was sort of stayed in the area after he'd been first taken to hospital. And I think I was just interested in talking to the other patients. And, that was a military psychiatric hospital, because he was in the Scots Guards. So that was a sort of, I think, provoked another load of interest, if you like. And then I had my own issues. I had a breakdown in the 80s. And then I think that what happened with all the campaigning and the documentaries and the books was really just that I felt, after I left government, I felt a lot of the skills that I had in terms of writing, communicating, strategy, that I could apply them to this mental health world, this field, if you like, this space. In particular, trying to break down the stigma and the taboo. So it's always been there. And I think one of the points I'm trying to get across to people in government, people in the public, people in business, employers, is that we've got to think about mental health as something that we all have.
Yeah.
We're not all mentally ill, but we all have mental health. So I've always been interested in it. But I'd say they're the main things that really kind of, fuel the interest, personal and political, really.
I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask is, I saw you give a talk at Oxford University 10 years ago about mental health being the last great taboo. And I just wondered, whether you thought things have actually improved in the last 10 years.
I think things have improved in terms of attitudes,
Mm.
and I think they've improved in terms of awareness, but I don't think they've improved substantially in terms of services. I think, if anything, we're going back.
Mm.
And I worry that at the moment, I think we've got to, at least David Cameron, Theresa May sort of talked the talk. They talked about mental health being important. They talked about the need to have genuine parity between mental and physical health. I actually think this lot are taking it backwards.
Yeah.
Sunak's recent speech, the so-called sick note culture, it was kind of classic populism for me. It was exploiting a problem rather than addressing it.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to mention, because he's pledging to strip GPs of their power to sign people off work as part of a plan to tackle the sick note. Well, if GPs aren't qualified to sign people off work, then who is? And what sort of a message is that sending out when the government is saying the UK is a sick note culture? So I agree with you that in a lot of ways, attitudes of, and I don't know whether to talk about some of my own experiences about that, but it was quite interesting the other day. I'm going off at a tangent and I do that quite a lot. But one of the things I was going to say was that I was diagnosed with cancer in September 2020 and was given 6 months to live. And as a result of that, I had mental health issues, because you're coming out the other side of something that you go, well, what the hell was that all about? But me and my wife had a conversation recently whereby she said, but I think, you've always had depressive episodes ever since I've known you. And I remember even in middle school, but it's almost, again, that you're saying about this taboo, it's almost like the cancer has validated, because I can say now, well, I have mental health. It's almost given me an excuse, if you like. I know I'm not articulating this very well, but it's almost given me an excuse to talk about my mental health, because I go, well, of course you've got mental health problems. You were diagnosed with cancer, given 6 months to live. Whereas previous to that, I wouldn't be doing a podcast about mental health. I wouldn't be necessarily talking about mental health, because I think you say in one of your books that it's easier to talk about cancer. Like you say, the big C was not that long ago, but now we openly talk about cancer.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I almost needed the cancer as a vehicle or as an excuse to talk about my mental health.
I completely understand that. I think that, I think I said at the event that we met that, we used to talk about the big C rather than cancer, because you usually apply labels to things when you don't want to say what it is. And if you don't want to say what it is, it's because you don't want to confront what it means. And I think with mental health, I think it's still a taboo for a lot of people, but it's better than it was. But my worry in relation to, the role of government and the health service is that stripping away the ignorance and the taboo, that has maybe made more people feel, I should be open about it. I should go and try and talk to somebody. But then if they go and find there's nobody to talk to, there's no services, there's nobody they can find to connect to, then I sometimes worry we're making things worse for some people. But I think we've got to keep going. I think eventually, I really obviously hope there'll be a change of government, but I think it's going to take more than that. I think it's going to take a change of attitudes right across the piece for people to understand that we need to get to a more preventative approach to mental health and well-being. And it goes back to this point that we've all got mental health. So, we all know, I'll give you an example. So recently I had because I'm 66 now and I got the old, you're covered by the bowel cancer screening program. Please provide a sample, do that. Turns out they want to see me. Turns out I've got 4 polyps inside my bowel. Okay. They take them out. They take them out. Now, that's preventative medicine.
It's 50 in Scotland.
Is it?
Bowel
that's
cancers,
right. That's right.
Yeah.
I think you might be 50 now, It started at 60 and I think it's coming lower.
Right, okay.
So anyway, but that's preventative medicine.
Yeah.
That's me. They actually said to me, if these things had been allowed to stay in there, it's possible they could have grown into cancerous polyps. So what would that look like in relation to mental health? It would look like as understanding that if somebody has a mild episode, that is the time to try to get to the bottom of why they've had it. Not to sort of say, oh, well, it's not as bad as it might be. Lots of people are worse off and all the other stuff that we do, because we don't like to confront the fact that we might be ill, our family members might be ill, our colleagues might be ill. When it comes to mental illness, we like to think it's just going to get better on its own. Now, sometimes it does, but often it doesn't.
No. And I think, like you're saying about the more people, the more open we are about it, the more people come forward. But then I don't know, I haven't got statistics, but I would think that if you went to your GP now and said, I think I need some counselling or some help, I dread to think what the wait would be.
Oh, horrific. Horrific. And also, child and adolescent mental health services are just in absolute crisis in most parts of the country.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that is the problem, is that we don't have the... I think if you or I climbed on top of a building today and jumped off it and we survived, right, the chances are they'd find us a bed, they'd probably find us somebody to talk to, etc. But that's what I mean about we have a mental health crisis service, not a mental health service.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to get to a mental health, or even a service, because, the best, I actually feel for myself that since I've sort of done a lot, mentioned the book the last book that I wrote about mental health, Living Better, I write a lot in there about the work I did with a psychiatrist who sadly passed away since, but also the things that I've done for myself for me to look after myself better. And I think as a result of that, I'm saving the health service money, because I'm better than I still get depression, but I've learned how better to deal with it through some of the things that I do, and that's been that I think has been as I say, I'm in my 60s. It's taken me a long time to get to there, but having got there, I feel I'm better off. Hopefully, it means my family's feeling better about things, and but also I'm not as big a drain on the health service as probably I was.
Well, I think one of the things you talk about as well, and you mentioned it at the speech that you gave when I saw you a couple of weeks ago, was your scale, 1 to 10 scale. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So really, what it is very, very briefly when I wake up or when I'm brushing my teeth, I'll just sort of say to myself, right, where are you on the scale? And 1 is a level of delirium and happiness that doesn't exist. Okay. And 10 is suicide. So they're the 2 extremes of the scale. And I like to be sort of 3-4. 3-4 is where I feel happy, I feel positive, I feel really energetic. I've got things to do that I want to do. I'm happy in my main relationship. The kids are doing okay. That's where I like to be. But I can't decide what I'm going to be, because when I wake up, some days I don't feel like that. Some days I feel terrible. And the reason I use the scale so is that if I wake up and I'm 7, that's bad. That means I'm depressed, and I'm not chronically depressed, but it means I'm not in good shape. And as long as I'm 7, once I get to 9, I can barely get out of bed. But if I'm at 7, I can say to myself, right, that's where you are. From experience, there are things that you can do that will help push you up. So that might be, I don't feel like exercising, but I'll make myself exercise. I don't feel like talking, but I'll phone up a couple of people and talk to them, and maybe say to them, I'm really struggling. I'll listen to music rather than watch the news. I'll read a book rather than read the newspapers. I will do things that historically I know have helped me. I won't drink. I'll drink lots of water. I'll eat well rather than eat shit. Just little things that I know. And as I do them through the day, it doesn't always work, but as I do them through the day, as I tick them off, I there's something kicks in that says, well, this helped before, so it'll probably help again now. And then before I know it, I'm up at 5. And if I'm up at 5, I'm thinking, I've made progress. I've done well today. And then I might go to bed, and the next morning I wake up and I'm back at 3 and 4. It doesn't always work, but I've used it a lot now, and it's helped.
Do you think your younger self would roll their eyes at this? I just think of some of the things that I do now, i.e. I'll go for a cold shower. I'll maybe go for a run. I'll maybe try and drink kombucha or whatever it is to try and I can almost see in the back of my head, my younger self going, what the hell are you doing?
I haven't really thought about that. I don't care really.
No,
I mean, my younger self, exists in the past, and probably would have done that. But then at the same time, as you were asking that question, I was remembering as a part of my younger self. I can remember a relative of ours. I can remember when my mother, whenever she came to stay, my mother would always say, remember not to make too much noise around the place because she has a lot of trouble with her nerves. I remember that.
Right.
And you know what I've learned subsequently is that she had bad depression and anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'd like to think that my younger self, had I known that she had depression and anxiety, that I would know what that meant and try to help in some way.
Yeah.
Or at least to understand how to be and how not to be around her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm sure my younger self would have gone, hippy dippy bullshit. And for some people it will be hippy dippy.
Yeah.
But to me, I have found things that work for me.
Yeah. I think that's what we're trying to say on the podcast, is that some things that work for some people don't necessarily work for other people. And I think this is part of why I'm doing the podcast, is that people have come to, I've seen things that I've posted online about my own sort of journey over the last 3.5 years, and have come to me and said, what you've been through with a young family and what have you, and radioactive iodine treatment and operations, that they found that quite inspirational. Now, I don't see that inspirational, because I think you've just got to, if you're put in that position, you just kind of need to do what you need to do. But part of the reason why I've done it is that because people are coming to me going, I'm suffering with my mental health. Have you got any tips to help me? And I'm like, I hear their stories, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what you've been through is like, if you put that in a sitcom or in a EastEnders, you'd be like, well, that's a bit far-fetched. But you're asking me for my advice, and like I say, we're all in this together. And that's the main reason we're doing the podcast, is we're all in this together. And if we can reach a handful of people that it helps, and we're exploring different ways that you can maybe, try and coping mechanisms and whatever, and talking to people like yourself about their stories. I just think that's, just trying different things and then finding out what works for you.
Yeah. No, and I get so when did I write Living Better? It was 2 or 3 years ago now, but I'm still getting letters from people saying this helped me, that helped me. I've had letters from people saying, I had a letter not long ago, an email from somebody who said that their dad had given them the book, and it had sat on their bedside for ages, and actually one day this guy said he just killed himself. And he worked out how he was going to do it. He's worked out where he was going to do it. And he didn't know why, but something made him pick up the book. And he read the book, and he said he read it in a couple of sittings. And he said, look, it saved my life. It stopped me doing what I was going to do. Which is massive. And, yeah, it's great. And I've not met the guy. I don't know him. Hopefully one day I will. But, and you get loads of sort of feedback like that of people who are saying, that thing you said about, I've got this thing about stress. When I feel real stress coming on, I do this thing with and a number of people I've said that to, and then they said, I do that now. And I find it really helps. Yeah. I don't know why it helps me, but it does. And I don't know why it helps them. So, and I think sharing those things, and all the thing about, when you're feeling stressed, listen to music, not the news. If you're not into music, that probably means nothing. But to somebody who's into music and understands the kind of power it can have when you're feeling low, sometimes to make you feel worse, but sometimes to make you feel better.
Then am I right in saying that you love a good national anthem?
Well, I like a good national anthem. There's a lot of bad national anthems. What are my favourite national anthems? French is pretty good. I play quite a lot of them on the bagpipes.
I was going to say, yeah. I saw you. What was that thing that you recently in Athens? I saw on Instagram. What was that thing you were playing?
It was like a homemade bagpipe that guy.
Is that what it was?
Goat skin.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. I didn't play it very well. I'll tell you what, it's really funny as well. I posted a picture, and the chant of it, where you do the fingering where the notes come. Yeah. And the chanters, the guy, it was all homemade. Everything was homemade. So anyway, I posted a picture of this chanter thing, and one of my followers on social media, asked one of these artificial intelligence tools what it was, and it came back, said it looks like a homemade weapon or self-defense tool. So AI may be clever, but it's not as clever as it's not as clever as music.
No.
No, I don't. I can play obviously Fly Scotland, I can play the Welsh national anthem. I can play the Ukrainian national anthem.
Okay.
I've got not bad on the Irish. Yeah, it's not I love a national anthem, but you know the
Rousing.
yeah, they can be. I mean, some
Mm.
of them are terrible.
Some of them are bilge.
Let's be honest. Our own is not the best, is it?
No. No.
It doesn't get your heart soaring.
Not really. No. I was going to touch on, obviously, your scale of 10, suicide.
Yeah.
And I think something that was pertinent to me sitting, like say, in this construction field, I was looking at some statistics, and the World Health Organization is saying over 700,000 people take their own lives each year. The Office for National Statistics, 115 people die in the UK each week. 6,000 people a year. 75% of them are men. And I'm just looking. So I did a suicide prevention workshop not so long with work, and like it's saying, construction, you're 4 times more likely to die by suicide than any other sector. In 2021, 507 construction workers took their own lives, and 502 of those were men. And I don't know whether, obviously, it's a male-dominated sector, but I just wonder. I wonder whether politics is similar, where you've got the same pressures, and I know things are changing as they are in construction, but again, mainly male-dominated.
The stats on construction are pretty well known, and it's been a pretty troubled sector for a long time. I think that, look, as you say, it is male-dominated. I think the other issue is that it's a bit like with vets and farmers, and they've got the means. So with vets, it would be the medication. With farmers, it'd be guns, and likewise in the construction industry. You're often in a naturally dangerous environment where it is easier than in a benign environment to end your life. But I think the thing about men is interesting, and there's an assumption that the reason is that women are much more open and much more prone to vent and to say how they're feeling and so forth. And, I imagine that's part of the case, but I suspect there's something else going on that we don't necessarily fully understand. Yeah. And I think in politics, it's funny enough, just before we started the call, I was reading a German newspaper this morning, and there was a huge piece about how much an increase in violence in German politics against German politicians.
Oh, really?
Literally being attacked in the street. I mean, the numbers are relatively low, but there's been a big increase, and so this kind of hatred is becoming normalized, which does make politics, I think, a lot harder than it used to be. And the other thing I'd say, I think I said this in Living Better, you can argue that politics in many ways it's a laboratory for mental ill health in many ways. You're often away from home.
Yeah.
The pressures are pretty relentless. You're constantly being judged, which most people don't like. Yeah. You're constantly, particularly now with social media, you're constantly being abused if you've got a high profile. You feel that you're within families. I think it's difficult. I mean, I've got my own experience of this, where you're so committed to your politics and your work that you're constantly feeling that you're not quite the parent or the partner that you should be. And maybe your kids and your partner's feeling that as well.
Yeah.
And added to which, you're in an environment where, particularly for elected politicians, I mean, even though most of them have got absolutely no chance of getting to the top, most of them think they could.
Yeah.
And they're sort of, they're in this kind of zoo-like atmosphere the whole time of who's up, who's down, and mistakes get exaggerated, and your successes don't get celebrated. So it's not a great place for mental health and well-being. And added to which, I mean, it's changing now because the hours are changing. But I think the alcohol culture in politics has been pretty strong down the years as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I say about it being something of a laboratory of mental ill health.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, that's been very interesting, and thank you. Because I can't stop saying thank you so much for coming on. Do you mind if we finish with a quick fire round?
Go on then.
Okay, so question 1: will Trump be the next president?
No.
Will Sunak be the next PM?
No.
Do you think Boris or maybe even Nigel Farage will be the new Tory leader if they lose?
No.
Do you think it's more likely for Burnley to survive the drop or Scotland to qualify from their group in the Euros?
I think it's more likely for Scotland to qualify.
It's not looking. When are you playing?
Tottenham on Saturday.
Yeah, and if you lose that, that's it, isn't it? Game over.
If we lose that, that's it. And then if we win that, we've got to beat Forest, and we've got to hope that Luton. And we've got to hope they lose to Chelsea. We've got to hope that Luton don't do very well either.
I'd go with Scotland as well. I think
Scotland got a chance to qualify because in quite a few of the groups, 3 teams are going to go through.
Yeah, I think it's all bar 2 of the groups. Yeah, the top 3 will go through. So I would, yes, if I was a betting man, I think my money would be on Scotland as well.
Yeah, so one win, and it'd be great because the third game, I'm going to go to the game in Stuttgart. I think they're playing Hungary.
Oh, okay.
And that'd be great. That'd be a win against populism and Orban.
Absolutely. Are you a fan of VAR?
No. Well, I'm a fan of VAR in cricket and rugby league.
Okay.
Because they make it part of the spectacle.
Yeah.
What I cannot stand is when you have an incident. We had one recently where it took the guy. I mean, fair enough, we got a penalty out of it, but it took the referee. It took minutes of earpiece. Nobody knew what was going on. Then he eventually looked at the screen and he gave a penalty, and it was for something that you couldn't see when you were just in the crowd. You couldn't see it. Whereas what happens in rugby league and cricket is just like it's some of the replays. It's a work of art. Right, it's brilliant. But the rugby league, and to a lesser extent rugby union, you're seeing it and you're hearing it in real time. So it's part of the spectacle. No, VAR in football is just a joke. Added to which, we've had so many. We'd basically be qualifying for Champions League if it wasn't for bad referees. And
there's a slight exaggeration, but I know. What you mean.
Okay, a very big exaggeration.
Okay, am I right in saying you've been on The Apprentice?
Yeah, charity version.
Charity Apprentice, and you were on the show The Prime Minister. Make Me Prime Minister?
Make Me Prime Minister, yeah.
Have you been asked to do Strictly or I'm a Celebrity?
Both, many times.
And it's not something you'd
consider? Never do them. I would never do them. I did Make Me Prime Minister because I thought it was a useful way of showing how hard politics is and how much it matters. And I did Comic Relief Does The Apprentice because I fell victim to the charity card.
But no, I think doing not that I'm ever obviously going to be asked, but I think either Strictly or I'm a Celebrity would be, in terms of mental health, if nothing else, that would be awful. Why would anyone want to put themselves through that?
Yeah, although you talk to people who've done it, they say they absolutely love it, best time of their lives, etc. But no, I think from my perspective, I just think, I think you got to watch your credibility in these things. And I know we live in a kind of, you mentioned Johnson earlier. Johnson is a sort of symbol of the kind of fusion of politics and entertainment. But it's really dangerous, and I hate it.
Just going back to that, you don't think he'll get back if hopefully if Sunak, I don't want to put my colours on a mast, but if Sunak does get defeated, you don't think Boris will? I don't know where they go from there.
Well, they'll probably go to the right. I think Farage long term is I think he's always had a sort of the idea of the Tories imploding, and he does a kind of reverse takeover. But I think that one of the reasons, if Labour win and if they win well, one of the reasons is that this whole sort of really right-wing populism is being rejected. So why would you go back to it? And added to which, Johnson shouldn't, given the damage he's done to the country, both through the Brexit stuff and through his the debasing of standards in public life when he was Prime Minister and so on. Johnson shouldn't be allowed back. If they decide to go back down that route, they are done. They are done.
Well, let's hope they're done a little bit before then.
Exactly.
And finally, then going on to that, the final question: if you were in government, what one thing would you do you think, to improve mental health in this country?
I think if it was only one thing, it would be to build on this model of mental health hubs in schools and actually have them in workplaces as well. And I think the other thing I'd do is maybe we should all get trained in mental health first aid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this is about people looking after each other as well as, expecting the state to pick up the pieces.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Alistair, that has been
all right, mate.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for being a
My
good sport
pleasure.
and giving up your time. And
Not at all.
yeah, no, brilliant. Thanks ever so
You
much.
take care. All
right,
the best.
take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have to say, I had an out-of-body experience whilst recording that because I could see him on the screen and I was talking to him, but it was like I was watching a video, but still somehow interacting with him. Part of my brain couldn't comprehend that I was having a conversation with Alastair Campbell, because you've seen him on the telly that many times, and
Yeah. And I've followed him on Twitter for years. So to actually see footage of you talking away to him like it's no big deal, it's really bizarre.
Well, the thing was as well that after I'd kind of spoken to him at the conference, we kind of said our goodbyes, and he left from one exit and I left from another exit, and we pretty much nearly bumped into each other on the corner. And I said, "Oh, for goodness sake, Alistair," I said, "you're going to think I'm stalking you." So he said, where are you going? So I said, "I'm going to the tube station." So he said, "Well, tube station's not that way, it's this way." And I said, "Alistair, it's not." I said, "It's this way." So he kind of rolled his eyes and asked a passerby, and I have to say, I was right. So we ended up walking to the tube station together, talking about politics, football, mental health, all sorts of things. And he stopped. You'll know this if you follow him on social media. He stopped halfway and went, "Oh, hang on a minute. I just need to take a picture of this tree," because he does Tree of the Day on his socials.
Tree of the Day.
Tree of the Day.
That's a jingle.
Does he use
Alastair
a jingle?
Campbell's Tree of the Day.
So yeah, I later looked at his Instagram and saw Tree of the Day and thought, yeah, I was stood literally right behind him when he took that picture of the tree.
It's amazing.
Now, you haven't had time to listen to this because you've been so busy.
Yes, mate. I have. Yeah, I'm going to listen to it when it drops tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it on my commute into work. But yeah, I've just been absolutely floored the last 2 weeks, really.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So it's going to be a surprise to me.
He's a very interesting guy, and I have just finished reading his book, Living Better, which I would thoroughly recommend. It talks about his association with mental health, his history of mental health within his family and personally. It talks a lot about his sort of coping strategies and what have you. And I would thoroughly recommend having a read of that. I listened to it. It's quite good because I got an audiobook and he reads it.
Oh, cool.
So it's a very kind of a very personal book, but has some really good tips in it, I think, to how you sort of manage it, because I think, as he says, it's not something that you're going to make go away. It's just a case of, well, as the book says, living better, and just how you deal with that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the common misconception for a lot of people, that there's some magical cure that just makes your bad mental health go away, and that's just not the case. It's like you say, it's managing it and living with it and rolling with the punches and the highs and the lows.
Yes. He also mentioned we did a kind of quick fire round at the end.
Mm-hmm.
One of which was he a fan of VAR?
Ooh.
Right, and he said no, which listeners will have known because they've just listened to it, but you haven't, so I'm having to re-explain it to you. But interestingly, I saw that Wolves have submitted a resolution to trigger a vote at the AGM on the 6th of June. And if at least 14 of the 20 teams vote in favour, VAR could be scrapped in the Premiership next season.
Yeah, I mean, if that was to happen, especially up in Scotland, where I follow most of the football, I would certainly not shed a tear if VAR disappeared overnight, genuinely. So it's an interesting, and actually, I think it was Finland. Was it Finland or Sweden? One of the Scandinavian countries have just sort of seen how it's been operating elsewhere in the world, and they've decided not to even try it. They've just said no.
Can we not just make it better though? Because I mean, it works in other sports. So yes, why can't it work?
It does. Well, I think partly it's because of the humans who are still making the decisions with it. I mean, it does work it works brilliantly in rugby, for example. Now, rugby's as a game is a bit more stop-starty anyway. So I don't know if that sort of video referee kind of thing in rugby works better just because of the nature of the game. But the other interesting thing about rugby is it shows you the decisions on the big screens.
Yeah.
Well,
And you
certainly,
can hear
in
the
the Six
referee.
Nations. Yeah, and you can hear it. So there's no hiding from it.
Mm.
Everything is visible and you can hear everything. So you're actually aware why the referee has made a decision. And then at the end, the referee actually goes to the players and explains the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in football, it's all shrouded in mystery still. So
what do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe they're scared of their incompetence being showed up, especially up here. Like the standard of refereeing isn't particularly good. And I can't remember exactly what the figures were, but there's quite a lot of decisions that football authorities have admitted to getting wrong. And the whole point of VAR is to these, the difficult decisions, it's to double check them to make sure the referee has made the right decision. And they're still getting them wrong, and they've admitted that.
If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, this is about mental health. If you have any footballing questions, please ring in, and Paul will answer. If it's Scottish football, what he did also he did also one of the questions I gave him was, did he think that Burnley were more likely to go for the drop, or Scotland to qualify from their group in the Euros?
Ooh.
He went with Burnley to go down, which turned out to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hope that he's also correct with Scotland qualifying from the group.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But no, it was a very interesting chat. And it is interesting, like they say, the question that, did he think the conversations have got better over the last 10 years? And the answer is yes, but services are still not there. And I've got my own experience of maybe not mental health, but in terms of, so I, with a company called MCR Pathways, do a mentoring program so they run a mentoring program in Glasgow schools. So it's some of the most deprived areas of Glasgow and some of the most vulnerable kids. And you sort of go in and offer them support in terms of mentoring and whatever. And I've been doing it now for a couple of years, and I've seen the benefits of that. And Glasgow City Council, again, because they're strapped for cash, what's the first thing they're going to chop? Is that. Mm. So at the minute, yeah, whether I will be doing that the next academic year, I don't know. But again, in terms of mental health, I know it's an academic thing, but the lot of the things that I'm dealing with, and a lot of the things other mentors are dealing with, is mental health in schools and mental health of the young people that we're mentoring. So yeah, but who's going to kick up a fuss about that? But I think, like Alastair Campbell said, if you were to close a cancer ward, there'd be uproar. You can't do that.
Anyway, how are you?
I have to say I'm pretty good.
Good.
Going to Alastair's scale, I have had this conversation with Gemma, that I think I've been a 3. I've been fairly manic in terms of spinning plates and trying to do everything. And hopefully that's not going to be followed by a crash. But no, I'm sticking to my running. I'm up to 25 minutes now. So week 7 of the Couch to 5K.
Nice one.
I've been taking, as you know, much to your disgust on social media, taking lots of ice baths.
Oh, fair play to you.
And yeah, do you know what I'm going to do, actually? I keep going on about this list. My wellbeing checklist or whatever.
Yeah.
What I've started doing, because I've been kind of doing it mentally in my head before, but what I've started doing now is noting it every day and making a note of, right, so I've had 2 liters of water, or I've done whatever, and ticking it off as a dot for that day. And what I find interesting is of how many dots I'm accumulating each day. And also you can see where the patterns are. So like last week, I'll take a picture and put it on the socials. You can see that, yeah, I'm doing sort of 2 or 3. One day I think I'll do 4 dots in a day, but all week there's no dots on the meditation line, and there's no dots on the drinking 2 liters of water line. So I probably need to concentrate on drinking more water and doing the odd meditation. Do you know what I mean? So I'm still getting a good number of dots a day.
It's the same dots though, isn't it?
It's the same dots. Oh, I just have a cold shower. It's fine. So no, but I think it is good to record it and have that kind of accountability. I find that quite useful. So, but no, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I've been pretty manic myself. I've been so busy rehearsing and just sort of doing other bits and bobs. No rugs. I've not delivered a rug for a fortnight.
Oh, I've done a very special rug of the week jingle as well.
Oh, sorry, man. I literally
I have to
the
use
last
that
time the last time we recorded, I think I'd just delivered a rug, hadn't I?
one rug, yes.
Yeah. And that was the last rug I delivered because I've just been too busy.
Mm.
So, but I've been keeping up with my Maggie's running and walking. I've sort of been, because I've been busy, I've just been trying to go out for little walks when I can, like on my lunch break and sort of on my way back to the station to come home and stuff like that. So I'm up to 30 point something miles. So I've got just under 20 to go.
Is that on schedule or on the we're now? So this is now the 20th, the evening of the 20th. This will go out on the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to give you 10 days. Are you ahead or behind schedule then on that basis?
I think I'm kind of on schedule. When I've been going out for a run, I've been kind of anywhere between 4 and 6 miles in one go, like in a run. So if I can hit 5 4 times, that's me done.
Done. Have you been into a Maggie's for a Chocky Bicky?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
How far away is the nearest one?
It's quite far to run to.
Mm.
It wouldn't be so far to drive to, but yeah, I've just not been able to do it, man.
Am I putting you under too much pressure to say with my couch to 5K and with your obviously runs for Maggie's, I've seen that your phallic pictures have come back.
I have drawn one phallic picture. I did that yesterday, in fact.
Was that yesterday, was it? I know I saw it on Facebook.
Yes.
Do you want a competition?
Okay.
We would post them anonymously of our run art. Let's do 2 each. Do you want to do 2 each?
Sure. Yeah. So 2 of the 4 runs I've got left, I can do some.
We'll probably have to
artwork.
mask them somehow because by location, people will know.
Probably, yeah. They'll look at
I
the
don't know whether that's going to work, but just as a piece of art, let's do that.
Okay.
We'll track our runs and see where you can make a nice picture.
Okay. Do we just surprise everybody with a picture? We're not having to stick to a theme or
no, just any
like
picture you like. I mean, it might be that people can guess what it is. I mean, I can imagine mine is so bad you won't know whether it's a frog or a rabbit or whatever I decide to do. So, I think
it's a frog.
It's a frog. It's not.
It's a rabbit.
It's a
frabbit.
It's a frabbit. Yeah, I'm not very good at art anyway, let alone whilst running. Not that I'm going to be drawing a picture whilst running. I've got a job to draw breath. But
it's going to take a bit of thought, isn't it? Because you're going to have to kind of think about this before you go out.
Because you came across that one by accident, didn't you?
Completely by accident, yeah. So if you've never, I think I went over this in a previous episode.
You did,
but
yes. Yeah. For new listeners who've just tuned in for Alastair Campbell,
yeah.
I don't think we need to go through it again.
Okay. But it was accidental. It was like
you drew an accidental rude picture.
Well, yeah, without going into too much detail, I accidentally drew the shaft because like the road is that sort of shape.
Right, so you are going into it again, right? Yeah, we are going.
It just so happens that at the end of the shaft, there's like a T junction, which
that's enough.
Your mind can fill in the rest.
Enough. That's it. You know, like Take Me Out when they all press their buzzer, and they leave. I can sense listeners all just tuning off. Changing the subject completely.
Yes.
How is Robert Moore?
Oh, he's a bad man.
Is he really bad?
Yeah. The character, well, I mean, like in real life, he was, one of the Gestapo's top interrogators. So he was, a pretty bad guy. Yeah.
Sorry, for those who don't know, Paul is playing the character Robert Moore, or the person Robert Moore. He's not a character; he's a real person in a show. This is otherwise, if you didn't know, it's just a random segue to.
Oh yeah, that I can see.
Paul's in a show playing Robert Moore, who is a Nazi, and the last conversation we had was Robert Moore didn't sound very Scottish. Sorry, very German. I have looked into this.
I have, yeah.
Moore, as in Monocle Moore or Oran Moore, is MHOR, which means great. In German, see, this is what you didn't tell me, it's MOHR.
I think I did say that, didn't I?
I don't think you did, Paul.
I think I did.
Do you know what that means in German?
Not great, I'm assuming.
Someone who lived in a fen.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. So it is German, just spelt differently from Monaco or.
Yeah.
He's a naughty Nazi.
He is. Well, yeah, like I was saying, in real life, he was obviously quite a bad guy. And we've been playing around with trying to find these moments of humanity and how much of his actions, like, was he just following orders like a lot of them said at the end of the war, and or how much did he actually believe the ideology? And we've sort of been playing around with that, trying to play him a bit more, a bit nicer in places or a bit more sympathetic in places. And actually, throughout all the experimentation we've done, he's just nasty. So it's quite draining. Like the play's not particularly long. Like it's about an hour and 15 minutes with no interval. So it's just like a short play, really. But it's exhausting being like that all day. Do you know what I mean? So I have
sorry, I fell into this trap last time. I can't really take the mickey because it's such a serious subject, but it's, I don't think we should use it as the tagline for this episode. Oh, just being a Nazi is so draining.
It is though, man. It is.
Yeah. How long is the show?
Like the running time of the show?
Yeah,
an hour and 15.
As opposed to in feet and inches.
Yeah. Or how long is the run of the show?
No, how long is the running order of the show?
An hour and 15, roughly.
So you've only got to be a Nazi for an hour and 15 today, and not even a camp Nazi.
No,
like an actual nasty Nazi.
Far from it. No. Again, for new listeners,
this show...
Lee has this thing about whenever I act, I am camp.
It's a fact. It's not like it is just a fact.
Yeah.
So okay, so hour and 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, everybody. And it opens tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Opens tomorrow, and then start a junior at the Trav Theatre.
We're at the Traverse in Edinburgh on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of June. If you're in the area, please come along.
Got a line in the morning before your big
opening? A little one, yeah. So I'll spend the morning just getting into character,
with your little tank.
So I know I'm going off on a wee tangent here. There's something in the show. I've got a little. What is it? I've got something in the show. It's like it's a little pencil. So I've got a notebook and like a little pencil.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to say the words little pencil?
I don't, but that's what, when we were getting organized today, I was like, has anybody seen my little pencil? And it made me think of my little tank.
My little tank.
Has anybody seen my little pencil? So anyway,
you can do a German accent-ish.
And a low-esque German accent.
But they're not letting you do that in the show. That is peculiar.
Yeah, can you? Oh, come on. Can you imagine?
Can you not do something more sort of, Shark in the Park? I'm fine. I can get the kids on to review it. We can, take the mick out of you being Elvis. That's absolutely fine. But if there's serious subject matter, then I'm limited with my.
I know you can't take the Mickey so much when it's something so serious, can you?
No, just don't do any more serious stuff, please.
Okay, Lee. And just I wonder if anybody is keeping a running tally of how many times Shark in the Park has been mentioned on the podcast. I'm assuming since this is episode 16, that'll be the 16th mention of Shark in the Park.
I think that's the first time that I've mentioned it and not you. So 15-1 to you.
I'm winning or losing. I don't know. Depends on your outlook, doesn't it?
Well, you better get some noddy no-nos, haven't you?
I know.
Rest your weary hair.
Should I do some housekeeping before we go?
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, better do some.
Oh, Beeson's housekeeping. Oh, how very lovely.
If you would like to get in contact with us, you can email us at sliceofmindcake@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Mindcake Podcast. And if you search for us on Facebook, just type in Mindcake and you'll find us.
Oh, yes, you will. Talking of which, what I wanted to know, seeing as you're the social, and I know the answer, you've been too busy, but as the social convener, have we had any emails? Because I want to know, is there a raft of emails coming in after last episode wanting me to do any quizzes. Any requests for me to host a quiz?
Not as far as I remember.
Right.
No,
Okay.
I've got quite a few ones from Vimeo. I take
Why?
it you've signed us up to Vimeo for some reason, have you?
No?
Well, we're getting emails.
Or more spam?
Did have an email from Ian McNabb.
Hooray! We haven't mentioned him for a while.
Ian McNabb has been back in touch, and he's basically said he is going to catch up with the episodes and get back to us. So hopefully by the time we record our next episode, we can return to Ian McNabb's email corner.
Hurrah.
Anyway, is it bedtime?
I think it is. You make that sound like we're going to go to bed together, Paul.
Can I just clarify we're not in the same house?
Oh, is that the party line we're throwing out there, is it?
Yeah.
Right, okay. No, we're definitely not. And we're going to sleep in separate rooms.
In separate houses.
In separate houses.
All right. Well done.
Thanks.
Well done on another good podcast.
Thanks, mate. I have to say, I've just listened in. We've got some crackers lined up. I mean, I still can't believe that we've got Alastair Campbell on the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the back of that, I've just listened in Sarah Dean, if you're listening.
Oh, yeah.
I've just listened into the menopause episode we just recorded before this. While I was listening, I wasn't part of it really. I gate crashed a couple of times, but with Charlotte, the bee lady, that is a corker. We've got another one coming up with Cam Cooney, who's an Australian meditator.
Yes.
I was going to nearly say mediator then. He's not Kofi Annan.
There's a reference for the kids.
Reference for the kids. He's not. But that is fact. He is not Kofi Annan.
No, that is a fact.
I don't think he's ever worked for the United Nations. But
I don't think he's ever clarified that. Maybe we can get him back on and get him to clarify that. Just to be sure. Mm-hmm.
I'll text him afterwards and say just to confirm, there's no legal problems. Have you ever worked for the United Nations? I think the answer is going to be no, but I'll double check.
Cool.
And then you have interviewed Dr. Megan.
Dr. Megan, she was lovely. Yeah, what a legend she was. So that episode will be coming soon as well.
What is she?
She is a highly specialized clinical psychologist. She deals with pediatric neuro stuff and trauma recovery, amongst other things.
Well, there's a review. She deals with pediatric trauma stuff.
Yeah, but if you tune into the episode, she'll obviously explain it in much clearer ways than I will.
Well, if you could get round to actually editing said episode, then maybe our handful of listeners. I'm going to go that now we've had Alastair Campbell on, we could be into double biggers.
Ooh, imagine that. But yeah, so we've got some really good ones lined up, and we've also got ones lined up that we haven't yet recorded, which are quite exciting too.
We have got some. Yes, I won't name names just in case
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, but yes, we've got some very interesting. I have to say, it's basically Dr. Jan's wish list.
And on that bombshell, is it time to go?
Time to go, noddy nine eyes.
Okay.
Night, night, Paul.
Night, night, Lee.
See you in the morning.
From a different house.
From a different house. Through the window. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Do tune in again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Pint Cake.
Oh, man.
Jeez, that's got to be the quickest intro we've ever done.
Ever done. Yeah.
Feels wrong to be so efficient.
Do you want me to cut that out in case people think it's just a bit shit?
Yeah, please.
Okay. New listeners, housekeeping, please.
No, that's wrong.
Oh, one job, Paul. You've got one job.
I'll do that again.
Did you enjoy the Victoria Sponge?
Oh, very funny. Very funny.